Welcome, everybody. I'm Leanne Raymond, and I'm here with my friends and colleagues, Sass Petherick and Bridget Boudreau. We are three experienced OG coaches. We've been around the block. We have a few things we want to talk about coaching. Lots of issues bubbling up in the coaching world these days. We've been talking about it behind the scenes. We thought, why not let you guys in on the conversation? So that's what we're doing today. We're starting today's conversation with the topic of coachfluencers. And we're going to just start with Bridget because this actually came up, this idea of a coachfluencer came up in a conversation that the three of us were having. Bridget said something about coachfluencers, and both Sass and I kind of went like, whoa, it really resonated with us. But we also thought it would be good to actually ask Bridget, what do you mean by that term, coachfluencer?
Yeah, that was funny because you both had this visceral reaction and then you were like, what is a coachfluencer? And so coachfluencer is the term I've coined for the, Instagram famous coach, basically. And so this person is usually a student of marketing, of digital marketing. They have a flashy brand. They have big social media platforms and followings, and that's their business model. And so that's different than, and and the context that I was talking about is, I think one of the issues in the coaching industry is that people have been basically presented with two models for coaching. You can either become a coachfluencer, or you have coachfluencers that are teaching you coach-fluencing methods that may not necessarily work for your business model or how you want to bring people into your business. Or you can be sort of have a therapy style coaching practice, and look, I have a therapy style, there's, it's not that there's anything wrong with these models, it's that there's basically two different models that have been held up, and people are trying their hardest to conform within these two different business models. And my whole point is, let's call these things what they are and also expand the number of options that may be available for people who want a career in coaching or want to use coaching as part of their career. The other thing about the coachfluencers is that there are some, and many, this is where we get into some of the other issues that we've seen with the coaching industry, where you have these high control coaching communities or culty coaching communities. You have people who are more interested in getting money in the till than delivering value for the client. So I do think this coachfluencer area is where we see a lot of problematic behavior. But I want to be clear. Look, having a big following on Instagram, having a nice brand, doing all that stuff is not inherently bad. However, there is a lot of problematic behavior in this model.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Just to kind of add to that, I think the reason I had such a visceral reaction to this phrase, this term, is it inherently feels like something I want to repel myself from. Like, it doesn't feel like something I want to integrate. And I think it's because, and I've been thinking about this as we prepared for this call, I think for me, what I see when I'm observing the coachfluencers out there is nothing to do with coaching and
Yes.
everything to do with really great marketing. And I think for me, the problematic aspect of that is that marketing is not coaching. And there is a risk, I think, that the nature of the medium, i.e., social media often, almost sucks the coaching spark out of the message, right? So what I see is complex ideas being distilled into something that's so simple, it almost is, pointless. It becomes a kind of cliche. I see lots of that kind of marketing idea that you have to be the expert. So you get the coachfluencer kind of standing on a pedestal going, here's the wisdom, right? And it feels to me like a kind of, yeah, like sharing from the mountaintop, like it's wisdom down rather than wisdom with, if you get what I mean. And I think there's something also for me about the inherent parasocial nature of social media rather than pro-social. Like it's very one way, even when everybody's liking everybody's stuff and you get a little heart from the person who, is account you're following. It's so surface to me. This is still a stranger on the internet. Are we really making decisions or deciding to invest with someone based on these simplified, quite one-sided, almost diktats of wisdom that are dropped in? There's something about that feels crunchy to me. And I know I also, in my own marketing, probably do some of that stuff, right? And it's so hard to kind of untangle from, what is helpful for people, because you never quite know. Like some of the posts that I've felt have been really simple or a bit kind of just dropping something in to stay in your feed stuff. And that has got the most amount of likes. And I'm just thinking, ooh, I don't know if that was just because it's popular doesn't mean it's useful, helpful, etc. So I guess all to say, I think when we are marketing our online businesses in a digital medium, we're probably all going to be engaging in aspects of coachfluencing. But I'm not a purist, like I don't think there's a particularly right way to do this, but I'm just fascinated by what we're going to talk about around how to navigate that, because it really does come back to us as individuals, what we value, what feels integrous, all of that good stuff. Yeah.
Well, and I want to hear Leanne, but I just wanted to piggyback on your point, because what I hear from good-hearted coaches is a lot of hesitation. And so this is why I think it's really important to have this nuanced conversation to unpack this for people, so you can make your own decisions about how to show up in the space. Because I get coaches going like, I like talking about manifestation, or, whatever the topic is that they wanted, your thoughts and your mindset. And those things have been really good for me. And what I would say to those people is, take in this integration, take in this conversation, take in the other conversations that are happening in the coaching industry, and don't let it stop you from doing your thing. Don't let it stop you from talking about the things that are important to you, but integrate it. And how can you talk about those topics in a way that are honorable and integrous, like you were saying? So I just wanted to flag that, because I think that's one of our big, when we originally talked, like that was one of our big objectives, is how do we I think the good coaches are so frozen. And so none of this is about finger wagging. It's about how do you navigate and think about all this stuff in a way that's not going to freeze you up, that is going to free you up and not freeze you up. Yeah. Leanne, I'd love to hear what you're thinking.
Well, this is just also interesting because, I had this is a little bit different than what I was thinking of when I was thinking of a coachfluencer. So I, for example, make no bones about the fact that I want to influence the profession of coaching. Like I want to be an influencer, but I don't. But so for me, the idea of coachfluencer had a different flavor to it, though. We use the word influencer. In fact, I just heard this thing recently where it's like kids nowadays, when they're asked what they want to be when they grow up. Have you guys seen this stat? It's crazy.
No.
It's like they used to say, a nurse, a teacher, a doctor, and now they are saying influencer almost like 10 times more than anything else, because they're so exposed to these YouTube influencers, I guess, are the big ones for that age group. So, or TikTok maybe. And so I think of a coachfluencer as I was thinking about it this way. I was thinking about the difference between what it means to be attractive versus seductive.
No, I
Mm.
think yeah.
Ooh,
And
I
like
love this.
we do, like I do want to, attract a certain amount of attention for my ideas
Mhm.
about around coaching. If I want to influence the profession, then I definitely am going to want that, right? So
Mm.
I'm in a different stage of my career when where I'm less looking to get clients from social media, and I'm not really on social media
Mm.
much, but I'm wanting more to influence the profession. So but there's to me, the quality of coachfluencing is when it enters into the territory of being seductive.
Yes.
Nice
And
definition. Yeah.
yeah, so for me, that can look like a lot of things. And one of, it can look like a real emphasis on sharing my lifestyle
Mm,
versus my
mm,
ideas, right? It's like, look at me living this life. Look at how
Mm.
cool I am. Look at all the like, and like whatever those things might be. You have something to
yeah.
say about that, Bridget?
Well, I just think you've nailed it, and it's like, yeah, look at this life I'm living and, by extension, so it's not the pitch as a coach fluencer in the way that we're talking about it here isn't like I'm going to help you be yourself, or I'm going to be your partner, your thought partner, your, person in your corner that's helping you figure stuff out because you have the agency. It's more like pay some money to come hang out with me, and maybe how I am, a little bit of how I am will rub off on you, and then you can have this lifestyle. So I think you've really hit
Yeah.
it because it's about money making, it's about how you look, even if, I mean, and there's some interesting twists to it, but it's how you present yourself, how you look. It's a upper class wealth attainment, and that to me is the primary driver. But sorry, I totally
No,
jumped in there. I want to come back to
this
you.
is
Yeah,
exactly
Yeah.
what we want. We
Yeah.
want to just let the
Well,
conversation flow.
and
yeah,
it seems to me like the seduction part of it centers the coach or the coach
yes,
fluencer, whereas the influencer, the kind of the more of the attraction aspect centers the client.
yes,
And
Yeah.
I think you've named for me, Leanne, the tension I feel around being visible. Because what I love about being a coach is we're kind of behind the scenes
Yeah.
support crew, right? It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm, and I kind of really love that role. I don't particularly want to be in the middle being centered. Like that doesn't feel
Mm-hmm.
that great to me. But I think there's something about naming that difference between an attractor and a seducer that feels
Mm-hmm.
really clear. They feel different in my body.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah. I think of attraction as a mature quality,
Yeah.
and seduction as an immature quality. So seduction is very superficial and it's very external in my take anyway. Whereas somebody who has that natural sort of beingness and presence, and there's an attraction to, so I often saw this when I was teaching high school, is that the most mature students would be the ones who often had a real interesting group of friends around them, because they were not caring about only being with the cool kids, or they had a mature quality that made other students feel safe with them, and they also were not like only talking to people in their own, like, oh, I'm really into sports, I'm more like a jock, or they had a wide range of friendships that crossed the boundaries. And I would always see these, I would see, like, I'd be able to pick out who are the mature kids in grade 12, and they would have that quality where they would just naturally attract other kids to them in a healthy way. in a way that was very not based out of fear, not like there was no bullying energy, there was no coercive energy, whereas seduction is a very manipulative energy, right?
Mm.
Yes. Yeah. As you were talking, Leanne, it made me think about, because I fell for some of these coachfluencers early days, and I remember I was training to be a coach, and I went to one of the in-person conference, and I could quickly spot the cool kids.
Yes.
And I was like, okay, they're the cool kids. And I even said to myself, like, I want to be in that crowd, because that
Mm,
was at that time like because I
mhm,
was not mature, that's how I wanted to, what I was really hungry for was community and
mhm,
belonging, and I think having a certain attractiveness, or a certain,
mhm.
like, because they look shiny,
Yeah.
and so it's easy to misinterpret shiny, and then a lot of these folks can parrot authenticity. But it was really what made me vulnerable to that was my desire to be a cool kid.
Mm,
And it took me a long time to realize, like, what I was really looking for was that more mature belonging, and just being a part of a community for being myself. That I
mhm,
didn't have
mhm.
to go put myself in the center of the universe.
Mm.
And they also appeared like successful at what you were wanting to
Yeah.
do, right? So
Yes.
there was also that like, oh, well, that is what it looks like then, I guess, to be a successful coach. And
Yeah,
if I
you
want
think
to
that's
do this, if I feel drawn to this calling, to this vocation, then I guess that's where I should want to be. It makes
yeah, that's
sense
the
on some
template.
level, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And when most of us working alone with few sources of good objective feedback, we can easily be seduced by that. Oh, that's where I'm going. That's
Yeah.
how I'll know I'm good, right?
Yeah.
But none of that has anything to do with coaching, right? That's the thing I keep coming back to is,
Yeah. Yeah.
what am I measuring here? Because if it's
Mm-hmm.
about my kind of social standing or professional standing, what
Mm-hmm.
are the sticks I'm using to kind of, or the bars I'm using to measure those
Mm-hmm.
things, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really, I mean, there's so much there. Like, I just never let myself be a beginner. I put so much pressure on
Yeah,
myself to be great out of the gate.
Mm.
And
yeah,
oh, that was just a recipe for a
Yeah.
lot of heartache at the beginning. But
Yeah.
I was following the templates of what I thought I
yeah,
needed to be.
Mm-hmm.
I
yeah,
think there's kind of another, I don't know, toss this into the mix. There's another piece here too, because these coachfluencers are also manipulative in their coaching. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's
Mm-hmm.
another piece, like we were talking about a little earlier. There's a certain flavor of this where, because they're centering themselves, they know it all. So I would say some flags to look out for is somebody who
Mm-hmm.
knows it all, somebody who will never admit that they made a mistake, that they got triggered, that, they had a part in a weird dynamic that occurred. They will never, ever admit that. And it will always be the client or the other
Mm-hmm.
person's fault. And that's
Mm-hmm.
where I think this whole dynamic that we're talking about moves into dangerous
Mm-hmm.
territory.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah,
bright and weaponizing
Yeah.
and then the really sadly devious ones will weaponize your own psychology against you. And that's where real harm is being done.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
Mm-hmm.
why we're all speaking out, because I
Mm-hmm.
think we have a
Mm-hmm.
shared desire to educate people about how to spot what's going on. And sadly, if you've been victimized by somebody, to help you work out what actually happened, because it can be very
Right.
confusing.
But yeah, and I would say, I think what we're talking about too is hopefully giving people an opportunity to be a little analytical before it even gets into that
Yeah.
stage. So looking at somebody's, so social media is actually, capitalizes on immaturity in the sense of like it makes money off of it. So it capitalizes on it, right? And so really looking at somebody's social media feed with a lens to like, is this a person who is talks about themselves a lot on their feed versus their ideas? Is this a person who's really showing off a lifestyle? Is this a person who is what's another quality I might look for? Like can you feel there's a real emphasis on those outward accoutrements?
I
It
think
might
too,
be, yeah,
I'm sorry, they're going to make really bold, strong
right.
statements that are
Yeah,
very
Yeah.
black and
yeah,
white. They're
yeah,
going to, anybody who speaks against them is a hater.
yeah,
I've seen people just horribly dragged in the public square. So dissent
right.
is not tolerated, and anybody who is not tolerating, and I'm not talking about random people coming,
Right,
trolls. Sorry, I was trying to think of the word. I'm not talking
Yeah.
bullying or anything like that, but these are like clients or people in the community that are asking questions or have complaints, and they are then dragged in the in the
Mhm.
in the influencers
Interesting.
social media feed, and like you
Mm,
to run away
mhm,
from
mhm.
that. So I would say anybody who's showing some kind of disdain for the people that are paying them money for services is
Yeah.
a
Mhm.
like a
Right,
huge red flag. Huge.
right.
I think it's also about what you won't see, right? So you
Mhm,
won't
yes,
see
yes.
qualities like forgiveness, tolerance,
Mm.
openness, empathy, compassion, vulnerability, anything that kind of you think, oh, that's a person I could sit and have a cup of tea with, right? If there is a sense of them, I don't know, I always get a sense of people being quite brittle when they're a bit
Mm,
defended against any kind of vulnerability. And I just
mm,
think that's probably not a person I would trust my stories to.
mm.
Yes.
That's so interesting, Sass, because as I think about getting back onto social media a little bit more, whatever, like I am not interested in in any of that, like in terms of like showing up that way on social
Right,
media. I show up that
right.
way when you call me and we have a consult to see if we'd be a good fit to
Yeah,
work together. You get a
yeah,
sense of who I am, but I'm not going to be sharing. I'm just going to be talking. Like my plan is just to talk about my ideas. I do not
yeah.
want to use social media as a place to share my vulnerabilities. Like,
Well, I think
so
there's a
that's
difference, isn't there,
interesting.
between embodying that quality and, you know, offering up your whole heart, right? I think there's a
Yes,
distinction for me there. Yeah,
sure, for sure. Yeah, I think you're really good at doing that. And I like how you do that. I don't see myself doing with that though. That's interesting.
yeah,
I
yeah,
don't see,
yeah.
I have I don't know what it is. I have a very different idea of how I would use social media, I guess. And I don't think
Mm,
either is wrong or right. But I
yeah,
would say
yeah,
that it's all, when you say it's also what you don't see, you won't see this or this or this. I'm like, well, I don't know that you would see those things on
right.
my feed. So does that
Interesting.
mean that I would be a red flag? I don't know.
No, I
Well,
mean, but
and also like when you do see those qualities overplayed, right? This is where the complexity piece comes in. It's almost like, well, they're a bit of a hot mess. I don't really want to.
Yeah,
Are they safe enough for me to tell their stories to? Because it's all about the stuff
right,
they're struggling with. So I
right.
totally I think there's obviously there is a third way, right? Always.
Sure, sure.
But
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
something about, yeah, and I do get that. Like if you're just wanting to share your ideas,
yeah.
knowing you as I do, I think because you exude those qualities, that
it
comes
comes through.
through.
Mm,
Yeah.
interesting.
And I
Which
Interesting.
think the
makes me
quality,
think, is it just energy, you know? And now we're
Right.
getting into manifestation territory.
I think it's also the quality of self-reflection and
Oh yeah,
self-awareness,
good
and
point.
that's the big one. And I think vulnerability looks a lot of different ways, and I don't think
Yeah.
I think vulnerability in the sense that you're not presenting yourself as an infallible authority on something that can't, where there's no questioning, there's no challenging. And that's what you said about them being brittle. I think is, these people are so tender, they are so tender and so brittle and will just break at the slightest bit of feedback because they're not really doing the work. They're not really doing the work. And that's the thing is like, I think you want a coach who is not perfect, who is not infallible, but is doing the work, in whatever way they choose to do it.
So I'm curious if either of you find this to be a red flag. I am always a bit suspicious when somebody has too big of a following. Is that something that raises a red flag for either of you?
So can I just say, I think I was definitely seduced by the idea that a big following will equal success. And I had this beautiful experience where I ended up coaching with a couple of people who have very, very big followings. One whose self-doubt was exacerbated tenfold by the big following, and another who had paid for a lot of her followers.
Oh, that's a thing,
right? That's a thing. I know.
Pay for followers? Okay.
This is a few years ago now. I don't know if it's actually still a thing or whether that's just kind of scammy stuff, but
it's still a thing, and
it is. Okay.
Oh yeah.
And it was quite an interesting experience because I worked with them in the same year, and it really I was kind of schooled in the process, which I love it when that happens with clients.
Yeah.
But yes, I am always a little suspicious around someone who has a big ass following. I'm not sure why, but there's something about that.
Let me go ahead, Leanne. Say
I'll just say quickly. It's for me, it's related to what I said earlier about social media capitalizes on immaturity. I see somebody who has a lot of followers. I'm like, that's a bit of a red flag that there's perhaps a lot of immaturity there.
So you make that correlation.
Yeah. Well, I don't know why I do it that as consciously as I just did it, but something like that. Like, oh, you're very slick. You've figured out the whatever, the marketing, the
algorithm,
whatever it is. And I don't necessarily, I always tell people like, look for the hidden treasures.
Yes.
Yeah. I would tend to look for the hidden treasures too, but I don't think I think I'm really similar to you, Leanne. I personally am not going to go for the biggest followings. I'm not saying it's bad though. Like I'm sure there's cases that
absolutely
break the rules, right? But
and how big
if I'm looking for something, if I'm looking for coaching, and here's Bridget Boudreau's budget plan. So what is this person's focus? So I see somebody with a big, huge platform. So to me, that tells me their focus, a lot of their time and energy and personal interest is in tending to and growing that platform. So they're growing the top of their funnel. And so if I want somebody who's going to focus on me and what I'm wanting to do, one, that person is probably going to charge a lot of money. And I know enough to know that I don't need to pay ridiculous sums of money from somebody. And I'm paying, what am I paying for? I'm paying for all the time and energy and people that it takes them to continue building that platform. So it's kind of a dollars and cents thing for me, where I'm looking for somebody who is demonstrating competency in the, like I've been doing a lot of sort of copywriting, marketing, copy, deep dive stuff. So I'm looking for people, I want to look for people who are speaking with an authentic voice, but have some things to teach me about writing. And so they're probably platforms bigger than mine in some ways. But they're doing it in the way that I want to do it. So I think part of it too is understanding who you are, which is a process, is a coach or somebody who wants coaching, but if you're looking for like a business coach or something, I think you have to understand enough about who you are and how you might want to grow to at least align yourself with the right person that can help
Mhm.
you. For
Mhm.
me, those super huge platform people, their time, energy, and focus is not where mine is. And so
Mhm.
that's just that I'm very clear
Yeah.
that's not who I want to be.
Mm.
And I know that all
Mhm.
that glitters isn't gold as well. And so
Mhm.
I, like I said, I've bought into that in the past and I have spent
Right.
that money, and I would like to help anybody avoid that pain of spending a lot of money on something, because when you're spending money to basically to hang out with somebody,
Mhm.
to hang out with an influencer and hope a little bit rubs off on you, you're
Yeah.
going to leave disappointed because there's it's all sizzle and there's no substance. And
Yeah.
that's what I see a lot. And I've talked to those people, and those people aren't interested in delivering quality coaching experiences. They're interested in marketing and photo shoots
Yeah.
and outfits and
Yes.
strong
Yeah.
Oh
social
God, that
media
could be a
statements.
whole,
That's and people that will
Oh,
follow them and receive that
yeah.
and give them money. Like that's what they're interested in.
yeah.
So I think too,
Yeah.
like Leanne, what you were talking about is looking at people's social posts. If you can, take a little bit of what we're saying here and let it fuel your discernment, that will tell you a lot about, do you want to
Mhm.
give this person your money? But
Yeah.
the idea that you have to pay, you know, 20,000, 30,000, these ridiculous amount of money, okay. So the other thing we have to talk about is the ridiculousness, like the
Oh,
ridiculous
please, can
Well,
offers.
we might have to have a whole other talk about that one,
I
because
think so.
that's
All right.
a whole other
But you
Put a
kettle
know,
of
pin in
fish
it.
for sure.
But Bridget, what you're articulating for me as I'm hearing you speak, I'm thinking, oh, it's are they looking for clients they can help, or are they looking for a fan club?
Yes. Beautifully
Right?
said.
Like that's a great distinction to hold. Yeah.
Mhm.
Am I just joining a fan club
Mhm.
and then it's
Yes.
all about you? Or am I going to be a client, in which case there is going to be a relationship that requires both of us to show up,
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's a very expensive fan club.
right?
Mhm.
Very
Mhm.
expensive fan club.
Well, yeah, and it gets into the whole, which again is a whole other topic that we can talk about, is kind of the
Mm,
multi-level
the
marketing
commercials.
aspect
Yeah.
of coaching that can happen. But I'm thinking of like if I was giving advice to a new coach, I would say
Yeah.
find not even necessarily people in the coaching profession, but if you're on social media, you will be influenced. So choose very carefully who you want to be influenced by. And I was thinking about this before our call, and I was thinking, like, when I was a beginning teacher, I would kind of, suss out what different teachers' classrooms were like. So I could, there were, say, 20 teachers in the building, or, if I was when I was at my last school, there were like 70 teachers in the building. Who has a classroom that feels like a classroom you would like to have? Who interacts with the students in a way that feels like it resonates for you, et cetera. And then those are the people I would kind of like ignore the rest and be like, these are the people I want to learn from.
Yeah.
These are the people I want to learn from. And I have found lots of inspiration in looking at people outside of the coaching profession
Yes.
who is in a completely different profession, but I really admire the way that they're conducting themselves in that profession. And so find a few people to kind of act as North Stars, or whatever you want to call it, exemplars that you can look to and say, okay, so consciously inviting that. I would call that like sort of invisible mentors. Like they don't know they're mentoring you, but they're mentoring you, right? So let yourself be mentored rather than influenced, maybe is the way to put it.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's really good.
And so that would be like, I would say, be very careful about just following any old splashy coach, because it's hard to avoid being seduced if somebody's really intent on seducing you. You know, it can be hard to resist. So
Yes.
make it easier on yourself. Yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think about, like, what advice would you give to a person like starting out in terms of social media and the whole scene?
I think there's something for me about like coming back to yourself, paying attention to how you feel in their presence,
Yes.
right? Not necessarily how they feel, because sometimes that can be like, oh, you're showing me something that's aspirational, right? But
Yeah.
how do you feel about you in their presence? I think that our bodies pay attention to so much subtle information.
Oh,
And sometimes you're going to get information that's like, oh, it makes me feel a bit icky about me. And so that's worth reflecting on and maybe working through. But if there is just a sense of, I don't feel great when I'm around them because I feel like I'm falling short or
mm,
I'm doing it wrong or
mm,
whatever, I think it's really easy to compare ourselves, and we always compare up, up the hierarchy, even though
mhm.
hierarchies is such a bloody awful thing, right? But we never really compare ourselves to people who we think we're further ahead of, right? We socially we're not really conditioned to do that. So there's something for me about, really pay attention to your experience of that person. What is the body sensations you're experiencing, and what information does that give you? And don't be afraid to just unfollow a shit ton of people all the time,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Really curate who you allow in your world. And it's just about taking care of you, right? It's nothing to do with them. This does not make you a hater. This does not make you, kind of a separating from them. It's just about taking care of you.
Hmm.
Because I think there is a sort of ethos, I think, when we first start our businesses and we first start this work, we're sort of looking to find out like what the rules are and who should we
Mm.
be following and all of that kind of stuff. And I can remember people saying, oh, you must follow such and such, you love them. And I'm just like, not my people.
Yeah.
And I've learned over the years to really trust that, really curate who I allow in to
Yeah.
influence me. Yeah. Bridge?
Yeah. I'm really resonating with what you all have said so far. And I want to echo shutting those voices out. Like, don't hate watch these people. Don't track
Mm,
them to see what they're doing and what they're up
Right.
to. They have nothing of value for you.
Hmm.
Turn away. Your attention is a valuable commodity, most valuable to you, but also monetized by other people. So
Yeah.
pull your attention back to yourself, even when it's uncomfortable as a new coach,
mm,
right? It's easy
yeah.
to get into sitting there watching who's doing what. It's just kind of a way to avoid the discomfort of putting your butt in the chair and doing the work. I mean,
Mm,
there was a point I remember I just had to shut all that out and just I would tell myself, mind my own business,
yeah.
literally
Mm.
mind my
Yeah.
own business and tend to it and show up for it. And so follow the people that will support you in that effort. And, if somebody is being mean to somebody else online, that means they will potentially be mean to you someday.
Mm.
Like, you are not immune, you are not accepted from that. So
Mm,
follow Maya Angelou's advice is when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time and just
mm,
turn away. You really don't need that kind of aggravation in your life. And I think
mm,
just understanding as a new coach, you're vulnerable. So the seduction and the hard to resist the seduction, I think is such a great point. And just knowing that because you're new in this industry and you're learning something, and then you come to find out that in a lot of cases, it's not just about learning how to be a coach, but oh gosh, you also probably are going to start your own business, although there are other options available to you. But
yeah.
you know, that's so you've signed up for a challenge for yourself, and it's going to also
Mm,
require a lot of inner work. And And in all of that is an incredible vulnerability. So you want to align yourself with people that understand that, at least on some level, and will respect that and honor that. And so I love the exemplars. Like, also don't get so entrenched in the coaching world. Look at other look outside of our world and see what other people are doing and get creative and try things out. Yeah, I wish I would have had this video with a new coach. Don't spend $30,000 on anything. I swear to God,
No,
if
unless
you
it's a
want
car.
to spend,
Don't.
yeah, but like none of this stuff. There's
Yeah.
nothing that we do, really, honestly, that's,
No.
I'm sorry
Yeah.
if you guys are charging $30,000
No,
for
I
something.
know.
No.
But I mean, if
No.
you are about to plunk down a huge amount of
Yeah.
money for something, I mean, reach out to somebody.
Yeah.
And if they're telling you that you should not talk to anybody and it's disempowering to talk to your partner or to talk to a trusted advisor about making an investment, and they are on that sales call turning you upside down and trying to shake the money out, run away.
Yeah.
Run away. Just run away.
Okay. Well, I think that should be maybe our next conversation is the
Yes.
Money and
whole-
coaching. Oh,
the
man.
money,
Yeah.
the coaching, the scam aspect, all of that. But I love what the conversation we just had today. I think for our first one, I'm pretty pleased with us. So
Go
thank you
us.
for everybody.
Go us. We killed it.
We're trying this out. We're seeing how it goes. I hope you all who were listening in got something out of it too. We're going to try, doing this a few more times for sure. And we're having a fun kind of just having these conversations with each other. So thank you for giving us your time, and check back because there'll be more to come.
Yeah. Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.